All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the artists of great millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And this is going to be part 2 to the 10 plagues that were sent on ancient Egypt and why, So I'm just going to pick back up where I left off. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. So the 6th plague that was sent was boils, to confound Isis, Egyptian goddess of medicine and peace. And it says, unannounced, excuse me, Slakia says, unannounced, the 6th Egyptian plague is given for the first time, directly attacking the Egyptian people themselves. Being instructed by the Lord, Moses took ashes from the furnace of affliction and threw it into the air. As the dust from the ashes blew all over Egypt, it settled on man and beast alike in the form of boils and sores. As with the previous 2, throughout the remaining Egyptian plagues, the division is drawn between the Egyptians and the children of Israel. As Yahweh gives protection to his covenant people, the severity of the judgment of Yahweh has now become personal, as it is actually felt by the people themselves, cleanliness being paramount in the Egyptian society. This plague pronounces the people unclean. The magicians who have been seen throughout the previous plagues are unable to perform ceremonially rituals. Well, just ceremonial. Slakia. Unable to perform ceremonial rituals to their Egyptian gods and goddesses in this unclean state, not allowing them to even stand before Pharaoh. They are seen in the scripture account no more. They are seen in the scripture account no more. It is great to notice the contrast shown as Moses and Aaron are the only ones left standing in front of Pharaoh with the one true God as their support. So let's pick back up in the book of Exodus chapter 9 and verse 8. And as you see the subtitle, the plague of boils. This is Exodus 9 and 8. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses and unto Pharaoh, and the Lord said unto Moses and unto Aaron, take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beasts throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beasts. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon my servants, and upon thy people. It's like I'm going to reread that. Exodus chapter 9 and verse 14, it says, For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou should be cut off from the earth. And in very good, and in very deed for this cause I have raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. As yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, that thou wilt not let them go. So, right, this is the primary reason why the Heavenly Father is doing this, why he's plaguing Egypt, to show his power, and to have his name declared throughout the earth, because it's like it says, in the earlier chapters that, his name, Yahweh, wasn't, wasn't famous, it wasn't well known, but, it was going to be known after what he's doing to Egypt with these plagues, So after, the plague of boils was sent, what was next? Hail was sent to do what? To confound the god Nut. It says the Egyptian goddess of the sky. It says, again, warning is given before the enactment of the plague takes place. Pharaoh is warned of the impending doom that will be faced if he does not listen to the Lord and forget his own Egyptian gods and goddesses. Hail of unspeakable size and ability to destroy would rain down from the sky and turn to fire as it hit the ground. The Lord is showing Pharaoh that there is none like him in the earth. Allows those who are willing to hear his word and do as he commands to be saved. A division is now felt between the Egyptians in the form of those converted to the Lord, as shown by their obedience and willingness to escape the protection of their houses. Similarly, we are warned to make our houses a place of refuge from the world today. We have been warned. Interestingly enough, the crops that were destroyed by the hail consisted of flax and barley, which were ripening in the fields. These two particular crops were not the mainstay of their diet, but were used mostly, but were used more specifically for their clothing and libations. This destruction would make their life uncomfortable. But as far as affecting their food supply, the wheat still survived. This gave the Egyptians still another chance to turn to the one true God and forsake their own Egyptian gods and goddesses, thus showing his mercy and grace even yet. So let's pick back up in Exodus chapter 9 and verse 18. See the subtitle, The Plague of Hail. It says, Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as hath not been in Egypt since the foundation thereof until now. Send therefore now, and gather thy cattle and all that thou hast in the field, for upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field, and shall not be brought home, the hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die. He that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses. And he that regarded not the word of the Lord left his servants and his cattle in the field. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch forth thine hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man and upon beast, and upon every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along upon the ground, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron, and said unto them, I have sinned this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Entreat the Lord, for it is enough, that there may be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and ye shall stay no longer. And Moses said unto him, as soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread abroad my hands unto the Lord, and the thunder shall cease. The thunder shall cease, neither shall there be any more hail, that thou mayest know that the earth is the Lord's. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not fear the Lord Yahweh. And the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was bald. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. And Moses went out of the city of Pharaoh, and spread abroad his hands unto the Lord, and the thunders and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured upon the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder were ceased, he sinned yet more, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as spoken, as the Lord has spoken by Moses. So, right. And what was the next plague that was sent? Locusts. Took a found Seth, the Egyptian god of storms and disorder. It says, excuse me, still Pharaoh would not listen to the message of the Lord. Still, he relies on his own Egyptian gods and goddesses. The eighth plague, issued by the Lord, had even greater purpose than all the others. It was to be felt so that Pharaoh would tell even his sons and his sons' sons the mighty things of the Lord, thus teaching even future generations of the power of the strong hand of God over all the other Egyptian gods and goddesses. Moses and Aaron approached Pharaoh with the same request, let my people go that they may serve me, and pronounce the judgment of locusts if not heeded. This is the second wave of destruction to follow the hail, and whatever crops were left intact that display were now completely consumed by the swarms of locusts that were unleashed from the sky. This wonder definitely affected their life source by hitting them in their food supply. The Lord displayed the possibility of imminent death if a change of heart did not occur. Yet still, Pharaoh would not listen. So, right, let's pick back up in the book of Exodus, chapter 10, start at verse 1. You see the subtitle, The Plague of Locusts. It says, And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I may show these my signs before him, and that thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son and of thy son's sons, and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know that I am the Lord. And just like it says, this was, the point of the Lord doing this so that Pharaoh could tell, his grandsons, about, the plagues that were sent and how great the Lord was. But we already know, those of us that know, we already know how, Pharaoh, how that ended with him, but either way it goes, all the other, Hamite tribes, they all heard of what the Lord had done, which is why after we came out of Egypt, they were afraid of us, but continuing, this is Exodus 10 and verse 3. It says, And Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, power of the Hebrews, How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring the locusts into thy coasts, and they shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth, and they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remaineth unto you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of the field, and they shall fill thy houses and the houses of thy, the houses of all thy servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth unto this day. And he turned himself and went out from Pharaoh. Excuse me. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their power. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? So, you see his servants trying to, talk to him like, you see Egypt, has been destroyed with the plagues that have been sent, But what? Verse 8, And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go, serve the Lord your power. But who are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds we will go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones look to it. For evil is before you. Not so. Go now, ye that are men, and serve the Lord, for that ye did desire, and they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail hath left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day, and all that night, And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts, and the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous they were. It's like, very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened, and they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left, and there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your power, and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, entreat the Lord your power, that he may take away from me this death only. And when he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, and the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coast of Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. So, right, Pharaoh's heart was hardened again, which is why, the ninth plague that was sent was darkness to confound Ra, says the sun god. So it says, darkness now fell upon Egypt, unannounced, as a prelude to the future fate to be felt by the Egyptian empire when the message of the Lord was not heeded. And they still turned to their own Egyptian gods and goddesses. 3 days, palpable darkness that was so immense it could be physically felt. It covered the land of Egypt. The sun, the most worshipped god in Egypt, other than Pharaoh himself, gave no light. The Lord showed that he had control over the sun as a witness that the God of Israel had ultimate power over life and death. The psychological and religious impact would have a profound influence on the Egyptians at this point. Says darkness was a representation of death, judgment, and hopelessness. Darkness was a complete absence of light. So, right, let's pick back up in Exodus chapter 10, verse 21. You see that subtitle, Darkness over the Land. And it says, And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. And they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Yet again, that's the separation. The children of Israel, they had light, in the land of Goshen. But where the Egyptians dwelt, they didn't have any light. Verse 24, And Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, Go ye, serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be stayed. Let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our power. Excuse me, Slakia. Says, Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind, for thereof must we take to serve the Lord our power. and we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto him, Take thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more, for in that day thou seest my face, thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well, I will see thy face again no more. Right? So let's get a little more, in depth to this ninth plague. So let's jump to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, and verse 1. It says, For great are thy judgments, and cannot be expressed, therefore unnurtured souls have erred. For when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation, talking about Israel, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness, and fettered with the bonds of a long night, lay there exiled from the eternal presence. Excuse me. Verse 3. For while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions. So they were seeing spirits, Excuse me, Slakia. It says, For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises as of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances. So right, they were hearing things, man. They were hearing water running. It's like they said, visions of, sad visions. Again, they were seeing, these different spirits, Verse 5, no power of the fire might give them light. So even if they lit a fire, they wouldn't be able to see it because that's how thick that darkness was. Neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. Only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful. For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the sight they saw not. So some of those Egyptians, they died not from the things that they seen, but from the things that they couldn't see, Verse 7, it says, As for the illusions of art magic, they were put down, and their vaunting in wisdom was reproved with disgrace. For they that promised to drive away terrors and troubles from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear, were they to be laughed at. Again, talking about Janus and Jambres, those two magicians, because again, after the locusts, really after the frogs, they couldn't, duplicate any of the plagues that were sent. They couldn't, send lice. They couldn't duplicate the hell, none of that, man. And once the Lord sent darkness, what? This goes to show you that, they weren't able to do anything, man. And anything done on the left-hand side, the Heavenly Father allows it, But what? It says they were worthy to be laughed at because they couldn't drive away that darkness, Verse 9, it says, For though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by and the hissing of serpents, they died for fear, denying that they saw the air, which could of no side be avoided. So right, they were hearing things. They were hearing water running. They were hearing animals run by. They're hearing snakes hiss, and they can't see them, So just like they said, they died for fear, because of the things that they could not see. But they were hearing things, man. So the Lord was bugging these Egyptians out. you know, and that's, how they die in the darkness, they die for fear, you know. Verse 11, it says, for wickedness, condemned by her own witness, is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience, always forecasteth grievous things. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offereth, and the expectation from within, being less, counteth the ignorance more than the cause which bringeth the torment. But they, sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted, their heart failing them for a sudden fear, and not looked for, came upon them. So right, man, they were seeing these spirits, man. They were seeing demons, you know. So again, that's another thing that they were plagued by, So if anything they seen was that, you know, so the Lord was messing them up, you know, with this darkness, man, because this is not a light plague. None of the plagues were light, man, but this is one of, the most grievous plagues that were sent, man, because they couldn't see anything for 3 days, man. 3 days of darkness. Like it says, darkness that could be felt, you know. So I was going to read a couple more verses. It says, so then whosoever there fell down was straitly kept, shut up in a prison without bars. For whether he were husbandman or shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and endured that necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with one chain of darkness, whether it were a whistling wind or a melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or a pleasing fall of water running violently, or a terrible sound of stones cast down, or of a running that cannot be seen of skipping beasts, or a roaring voice of most savage wild beasts, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them swoon for fear. So, right, just going into in-depth detail of how exactly they were plagued with darkness, the things that they suffered for those 3 days being in darkness, man, So that was the ninth plague. And now we're going to go into, the last plague, the 10th, which is the death of the firstborn among the Egyptians and upon their beasts, which is to confound Pharaoh, says the ultimate power of Egypt. It says Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was worshipped by the Egyptians because he was considered to be the greatest Egyptian god of all. It was believed that he was actually the son of Ra himself, manifest in the flesh. After the plague of darkness felt throughout the land was lifted, Pharaoh resumed his position of bargaining with the Lord and offered Moses another deal. Since virtually all of the Egyptian animals had been consumed by the judgments of the Lord, Pharaoh now consented to the request made to let the people go. Excuse me, Slakia. But they must leave their animals behind. This was a totally unacceptable offer, as the animals were to be used as the actual sacrifice to the Lord. The Lord is uncompromising when he has set the terms. Enraged by the refusal, Pharaoh pronounced the last deadly plague to be unleashed upon the land from his very own lips, as he warns Moses, "Get thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more, for in that day thou shalt see my face." Slakia. For in that day thou seest my face, thou shalt die. And Moses said, "Thus saith the Lord, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even the firstborn of the maid servant that is behind the mill, and the firstborn of the beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore." So let's get into it. The last plague. This is Exodus chapter 11. You see the subtitle, The Last Plague. It says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold." Now, that word borrow, they didn't actually borrow like, hey, let me get that and I'll bring it back. No, they took it. They spoiled the Egyptians, So as you can see, it's, Strong's H 7592, Sha'al, which it says to ask, inquire, borrow, no, to ask for, ask, no. Well, it says to be given on request, but anything they're saying that they wanted, they took it, just to put it plainly. They didn't, hey, let me get that, and I'll give it back. No, they took, their goods, their silver, their gold, So picking back up at verse 3, it says, "And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of the land, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against any man, it's like against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel." And that's the separation, because these plagues were affecting the Egyptians, but it didn't affect the Israelites. Verse 8, it says, "And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out." And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt." And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. So picking back up in Exodus chapter 12, and as you can see, the Passover lamb, which, again, Passover is upon us, so tomorrow, we will be keeping the Passover. And, this is what the Passover is about, how the Lord delivered us out of Egypt, and this is one of the 3 high holy days that we're supposed to keep, So let me grab that real quick. So 2 Chronicles chapter 2, it's like, 2 Chronicles chapter 8 and verse 13. It says, excuse me, it's like, 2 Chronicles 8 and 13. It says, even after a certain rate, every day offering according to the commandment of Moses on the Sabbaths and on the new moons and on the solemn feasts, 3 times in a year, even the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the Passover, and then the Feast of Weeks, and then the Feast of Tabernacles. So these were the 3 high holy days where all of the men of Israel had to come to Jerusalem to keep these, holy days. The Passover, also known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles. These are the 3, most important high holy days, that we had to keep, So just to throw that in there. So coming back to Exodus chapter 12, verse 1, it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year unto you. It's like it to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from among the sheep or from the goats, because you could use a lamb or a goat. It says, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherewith they shall eat it. So right, after you slaughter the lamb, you would drain out the blood in a bucket, and again, just like it says, you would take some hyssop, and put it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts, and that blood was to signify that you were being protected from the destroyer, aka our Lord Yahweh Shai, when he came through and smote the Egyptians, which is going to say in the latter verses, verse 8, it says, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and with unleavened bread, it's like it, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. And that's how we're supposed to eat the lamb, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, bread without yeast, so we're supposed to remove all of the yeast, from our homes, and then, yeast or leaven, the leaven that is within us, the different false doctrines, we're supposed to get rid of that as well, you know. Verse 9, it says, eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. So again, you would take the whole lamb and roast it. You wouldn't, you wouldn't remove anything, you know. So you would tie his legs, and roast the entire lamb. Verse 10, ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And right, just plain and simple, those that are able to do so, if you have the means of, if you have any lamb left over after the Passover, that's how you're supposed to, discard it, by, burning what's left of it. And obviously every, brother isn't going to be able to do that, but, just to get rid of it, get it out the house. Verse 11, and thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover, and that's how we're supposed to eat, because, we were getting ready to be delivered, out of Egypt, so we had to be ready to go. That's why it says, our loins girt, shoes on, staff in hand, ready to move, and eating it in haste, you have to eat it quickly, Verse 12, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both men and beasts, and against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. So this is how we're to keep the Passover, and that's why we keep it. It's a remembrance of what the Lord did to the Egyptians, on behalf of us, So I'm going to jump to verse 23. It says a memorial of redemption. This is Exodus 12 and 23. It says, for the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your homes to smite you. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when ye be come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall ask unto you, what mean ye by this service, that ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshiped. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And right, so if our children were to ask, why do we keep the Passover? That's why, because again, it's a sacrifice of the Lord, for passing over us, when he smote the Egyptians. You know, verse 29, it says, "And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also." Verse 33, you see the exodus of Israel says, "And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, We be all dead men." Says, "And the people took their dough before it was leavened." So again, they didn't have time, put yeast in it, and let it, rise. Says, "Their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment." They took their goods. "And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And the Egyptians, and they spoiled the Egyptians." So, we took their shit, just to put it plainly, man. Says, "And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside children, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle." And right, that mixed multitude, was a different, heathen nations that, left out with us. But it's primarily, us, the Israelites, that were delivered, And this is the conclusion to, matter of fact, I'll actually read verse 39, then I'll end it. It says, "And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years." And right, in Abraham, he was told that his children would be in Egypt for 430 years, because the children of Israel were oppressed in Egypt for 400 years. But the 30 years comes from, Joseph, being in Egypt for that 30 years, because he was sold unto the Egyptians, by some Ishmaelites, which, they were so, which, some Midianites sold him, so his brethren, the other tribes sold him, and he was ultimately sold unto the Egyptians, so he dwelt there for 30 years, and then the rest of the tribes eventually came and dwelt there for 400 years, So this is the conclusion to the 10 plagues that were sent upon ancient Egypt and why they were sent, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.